Hi, goblins! My name is Jody and I'm the Goblin Girl. I'm a 43-year-old gaming girl and I'm here to show you how to get into gaming, no matter what your age is. In this video, we're going to create our first World of Warcraft character. I'm going to walk you through the creation process and what some of the differences are between the different races and classes, and how to pick what's best for you and for your playstyle. So, first of all, you're going to be on the screen where we last left you, where you have your game installed and you're all ready to play. So to play, you simply click on the play button and it will get you into the game. Now, once you hit play, it's actually going to provide you with the introduction video to World of Warcraft. And I'm not going to spoil that for you here, and I don't even know that I could because I have it installed and I played it before in this character. So it's going to kind of tell you some of the interesting story about World of Warcraft, some of the characters, the main characters that you'll probably will meet along the way. Once you've gotten past the video, it's going to ask you to select a realm. A realm is a space on their servers that allows you to play together with other people. You can have your friends join you together on the same realm and you'll be able to quickly and easily walk in together, play quests together, that kind of thing. There's two types of realms. There's a normal realm, which is just for everyday, interactions. People could talk about things in the game. They could talk about things that are going on in real life, what sports teams are playing, versus the RP realms, which generally people tend to get more into the characters. So if you want to be an actual goblin girl, you can, or a panda, or a blood elf warrior knight who wants to protect his particular side of the realm. It's kind of a fun experience if you're into that. You can go to a tavern and just start talking to people. It's quite fun. The other thing that pay attention to is the population. Now there's population for new players, which generally are lower servers, and a lot of times a lot of the people that are playing are brand new to World of Warcraft, which is kind of a good thing. You can also pick a lower population server if you don't want just something specifically for new players. Or you can get into one that has a higher population, which if you scroll down, you'll see some that are medium and some that are high. And then there are actually some that are full. If you try creating something on a full server, you're probably not going to get in very quickly, if at all. So I would recommend as a new player that you would pick a server that's specifically for new players. You click on the server and then you click OK. Now it's going to log into the game server and immediately put you into the character creation screen. After you created your first character, it's going to go to your character list instead. But the very first time, it's going to go to the character creation screen. In the screen, you can pick between your two sides. There is the Alliance and the Horde. The Alliance tend to be races that are thought of as more nicer race. It's not necessarily true. It's just kind of the idealism of humans, dwarves, elves, that kind of thing against the, massive horde. And we'll kind of talk more about that in a minute. The Alliance races are humans, which, are like everyday humans. Let me pick something that's not a weapon in their face. You can have, again, male or female characters. And depending on the class you'll pick, which we'll talk about classes after we talk about races, they will look different in each of the different pieces. But humans, they're kind of run-of-the-mill humans. You don't have as many benefits to you because you're such, you can do so many generalized things. Dwarves are similar to humans except they're shorter. They do have an interesting skill where you can find treasure a little bit easier. Their skin, you can have a temporary buff that kind of helps you defend against things. It's fun. Night elves are creatures that tend to live in nature. They start off in the woods in general. They have the ability to kind of hide into the shadows because they're so used to blending in nature. Gnomes are one of the shorter races. People kind of joke around about stepping on gnomes because they are so little. As somebody that is only 5'3", I can kind of relate to being a gnome. Maybe more a dwarf, but very close to it. Um, they have an interesting story as well. Their leader was basically kind of gone a little crazy, um, and created this area, where they created leper gnomes basically, and you eventually had to kind of overthrow him because he was getting a little crazy. The Draenei are kind of a peaceful race. They were introduced with one of the expansion packs. They came from a different planet, so it is kind of a science fiction thing. It's not just fantasy. And they're trying to kind of live on Azeroth. The Worgen are actually shapeshifters. They turn from humans into wolves, standing kind of walking around werewolves type creatures. And then we have the Pandaren, which are pandas. In addition to that, if you work on questing, you can also unlock special character races that don't have quite as much customization to them, but they look also kind of cool. They have a Void Elf, a Lightforged Draenei, the Dark Iron Dwarves, Kulturans, which are a slightly different race of humans, and the Mechanomes. As you can tell, I actually don't have these unlocked, and you have to actually do quests to unlock them. If you happen to click on them, they'll tell you what things you need to do in order to be able to unlock them. So that's kind of the alliance. They have, again, every character race you'll see has different bonuses and minuses. I tend to not pick off of the bonuses and minuses as much as what character I like the look of. So I have some humans, I have some dwarves, I probably have some gnomes, and I definitely have a Draenei or two. And every once in a while I'll play with some of the other races. Oh, I definitely have Dark Iron Dwarves. I like the way they look as well. They're pretty cool. So on the Horde side, the Horde, a lot of people think that the Horde are evil. They're not really evil. So a long time ago, the orcs were forced off of their planet onto Azeroth, and the humans kind of started attacking them, and the orcs kind of gathered some people around them to try to help in order to defend them, and eventually they became the Horde. So the Horde is really about defending, their honor, trying to keep and stay alive in the face of having to deal with the Alliance. The Horde main class, race I should say, are the orcs. I know orcs, again, you can be male or female, are very honor driven. They're just trying to protect their home. The undead are exactly that. They're people that used to be alive, that died, and then they were raised back to life again by the other undead characters, primarily from their leader of the undead. The Tauren were peaceful, nature-loving. I kind of think of them as kind of hippies, hippie cows, because they look like cows. See if I can find one that's not quite as hippie looking. Nope, they are all pretty much like that. I actually have a druid shaman, or a druid, not druid shaman, a druid Tauren, because, you're already an animal, you might as well shapeshift into an animal. Trolls are kind of similar to what you've always heard of, fantasy trolls. They've got tusks and pointy ears, and these ones specifically have 2 toes, which is kind of weird looking, but people like it. Blood elves are kind of similar to night elves, except they kind of, there's a long story of them that you can find out, but they are magic driven, so they're kind of almost insane with magic, but not quite, so they're trying to control magic, basically. And then paladins are light driven. Goblins, which is kind of where my name comes from, came from an island where they had a mega rich boss basically taking care of them, and they escaped the island because it gets destroyed. But they're, kind of money hungry characters, and they run all the banks in Azeroth as well. And then the Pandaren, which again are pandas. So you'll notice you can actually play Pandaren on either Horde or Alliance, and they look exactly the same. There's a whole story to it that once you go to the Pandaren area that you'll learn. It's a pretty cool story. Then again, on the additional races that you can play, on the Horde you can be a Nightborn, which are kind of similar to the Elves. High Mountain Tauren, which is, they're more like reindeers instead of cow. Reindeer, I should say, instead of cow, because you can see their horns look slightly different. The Magaran Orc are brown-skinned orcs instead of the green-skinned orcs. There's a whole story there as well. The Zandalari Troll, they are more like, I forget the word for it, but they're just a different kind of troll. There's a whole area in one of the expansion packs where you get to meet the Zandalarians, which is where you unlock them. And then the Volpera are like little fox creatures, which are also kind of cute looking, if you like foxes. So that's the different races. Now, what you decide to play is kind of, again, I tend to pick characters that I like. Now, each of these races has different bonuses, and to learn about them, you used to be able to actually click into them. Oh, you can right-click on each of the different characters, and it will tell you what their bonuses are. So, for example, the Orc has a way to increase damage for a short period of time. They have a resistance to sun effects, and they have their pet's damage increase. So that would be a very good pet class. Again, play what you like. These things, you'll just learn to either enjoy the extra benefits or not. The undead, for example, can swim underwater, where the dark iron dwarves, they have this cool mole machine transportation thing that's kind of neat too. But each of them have their own different bonuses or negatives. The negatives, of course, being that you don't get the things from the other characters. So I'm going to start by creating a goblin. And you'll also notice that each of the different races can only be certain classes. So, for example, the Tauren can't be mages, rogues, warlocks, demon hunters. Now that I've kind of talked to you about races and how to understand the different bonuses for races, and a lot of the bonuses you're also probably not going to understand as a new character, so again, just play something that you think looks cool. Pick the thing that you think looks the coolest. Now for races, for classes, you have the warrior, which this tends to be a very up close and personal class. You're not going to be far back from your enemies. You're going to be right up in front of them, which means you're probably going to take a lot of damage. You also have the toughest armor to try to offset that damage, because you're going to be wearing plate, which, if you think about old times and plate armor, it was really tough. It was really crazy. People were really, it was really harder to get through plate. So the people that are in the closest to the damage are probably going to be in plate. So warriors are in plate. You can often wield, like this person is wielding two different two-handed weapons, right? Those are dual-headed axes. So again, you kind of got to get into the thought of, I'm playing in this fantasy world, and back then, because it's probably, some time ago, people didn't have a lot of guns. They didn't fight with a lot of guns. They fight with more weapons and magic, because it's a magical game. Well, these are these giant two-handed axes. And of course, it's a Tauren, so it's a cow wielding two giant-handed axes. So warriors, being such, strength characters, have these giant axes that they can wield. They can also wield swords and polearms and, basically most of the melee weapons your warriors are going to be able to use in fighting with. So if you like that, if you want to be really upfront and close and personal, playing a hippie cow that happens to really love blood and thunder, there's your character. The next character class that you can play is a hunter. And a hunter, you have a pet, and each of the different races starts off with a different pet, but you can get a lot of different animals in the game. You can choose which ones you want. You can have wolves and dogs and cats, like different kinds of cats, like lions, and lots of really cool animals, bears. But you start off with a different pet. You tend to use either a bow and arrow or a gun, which, you know, is pretty cool because it's the only class that can play with a gun. You can also play with a polearm if you don't want to use a gun. They generally are up close and more up close and personal than the actual guns. Mages, there's three different. Every single class you'll see has what they call three different specializations. So you can play as, a hunter. You can play as a marksman hunter. That's, more about aiming and using your weapon, versus the beastmaster, which is more about your pets, versus I forget what the third one is, but that's the one with the polearm, versus the mage. The mage has fire, ice, and what they call it's arcane. So if you ever heard of the joke about the magic missile shooting magic missiles into the dark, if you haven't, Google it. It's hysterical. That's kind of the arcane. You can actually shoot magic missiles into the darkness. But because you have such high damage, you are often what's known as a glass cannon, because you can get attacked very easily. These characters tend to wear cloth armor because they're more magical in nature. They don't need to be as up close and personal. You don't want to be as up close and personal. Hunters wear mail armor, which is kind of like an in-between. You're not really plate class, you're not really cloth class. You're a little bit stronger because you could get in some danger, but you don't necessarily need to be. Rogues are the typical thieves. You hide, you kill things from behind, you can steal, you can unlock boxes, and they wear leather armor, but they're also very high damaging. Priests can either be healers or damage dealers. There's two different types of healer specializations, and then there's one that's specifically for damage dealing. That's a shadow priest. So you're kind of more dark and gloomy than this. Right now she's kind of glowy and yellow, which is kind of cool. Warlocks are also pet classes. They're a little bit darker energy. They're going to be casting shadow spells and the like. And then they also have pets, which is kind of cool. They often do what's called damage over time spells, which means you tick, instead of like normal things, you hit it and it attacks a large damage amount. It's more like it does small amounts of damage over time, or DOT. Kind of like a bleeding effect, except it's more dark magic instead of bleeding. Paladins are kind of similar to warriors, except they almost always have a shield. There is, in fact, I'm pretty sure there's one specialization of them that does not require a shield, and which they always use a two-handed weapon. And they usually like to use hammers because, it's more like the old-fashioned knights of the time. They can be tanks, they can be damage dealers, and they can be healers. A tank is someone that protects you from damage, where a healer is somebody that their whole responsibility is just to keep somebody alive. Druids are the most versatile class you can be. You can be a upfront damage dealer like a rogue. Excuse me. You can be a faraway damage dealer like a mage or a hunter. It uses magic. You can be a tank or you can be a healer. So you can be any of the 4 types of classifications at any point in time. They also turn into animals. So the damage dealer, the upfront close damage dealer turns into like a tiger, or what's some of the other ones? They're different based on the type of druid you play. Some of them are more like wolf-looking things. Some of them are, but generally speaking, they're kind of like big cats, I should say. Like his looks more like a lion, versus this one looks more like a tiger. They can swim, they can turn into birds to fly, they can turn into bears to defend things, so kind of a cool class. Shamans use magic totems to help kind of give more benefits to whatever they're doing. So shamans can be two different types of damage dealers, either one that's farther away or one that's close up, or a healer. And they use their totems to kind of help them do whatever they're doing. So they have totems that will add extra damage, or they have totems that will heal over time, or they have, they also have like lightning spells. They're more elemental kind of magic. Where druids are more about night and day, like the sun and the moon type magic. So there's night magic, or moon magic, I should say, and sun magic. Not night and day. Monks are kung fu things that like to use hand to hand, so they're kind of close up. Like rogues, they wear leather armor. Shamans wear mail armor. Druids wear leather armor. Paladins wear plate armor, and warlocks wear cloth armor. Priests wear cloth armor. Rogues wear leather. Mages wear cloth. Hunters wear mail. Warriors wear plate. Then the last two are more specialized for specific expansions. This one is a Demon Hunter, which only has two specializations. One is for damage dealing and one is for tanking. But you can see they use these cool weapons called warglaives that are kind of like, they kind of remind me of like Star Trek's, the battalion things from the Klingons, which are kind of cool and big and pretty mean looking. And then Death Knights, which generally use two-handed weapons. There's one that uses, I think they use dual swords instead. Some of them have a pet, which is why you saw the little thing kind of hanging out in the background. They also wear plate, and they're kind of more like warriors in nature, but they use, one specialization uses blood magic, one uses kind of death magic, one uses cold magic, ice magic. So again, pick the class that you think is the most fun. If you like doing damage from far away, use a hunter. If you want damage up close and personal, pick a paladin. If you want to be able to heal a lot, but maybe you also want to do, damage, pick a druid. Pick kind of whatever you like. Now, for your very first character, I'm going to recommend, it's not something you have to do, of course. Like I said, pick what you have fun with, but I'm going to recommend a hunter. The reason I recommend hunters is because your pet can help you deal damage and protect you from doing harm. And you're going to see this as we create a character, we go through how to, play the game. You're going to see that the pet is very useful. You don't need it. It's not required at all, but it's fun. So once you've decided on your race and your class, you click customize. And your gender, if you want to be a male or a female. Now I'm going to name her Goblin Girl. Because I didn't pick a roleplay server, my name doesn't have to be anything fantasy. If it was a roleplay server, it's probably good to have something fantasy, or you may have somebody ask you to change your name. It's not a big deal, but it's just something to keep in mind. So once you've named your character, you can then decide what you want your character to look like. If you're not sure, you can click on this little dice, or if you want a randomized name, you can also click on dice up here, and it will randomize what your character looks like. And some of these are really bizarre looking. If you don't want to randomize, you can decide what you actually want the character to look like. You can, on every one of these options, you can either click left to right to change the option, or you can actually click on the drop down and just hover over it and it automatically changes. I'm going to make this one kind of more of a bluish green color. You can also, again, same thing, you can pick through which options, or you can just click on which ones you want. Yeah, I kind of like the way that looks. You can then pick on what hairstyle you want. And there's even more hairstyles once you actually get in game. But you can pick whichever one you want. I like that one. And then you can pick what color you want their hair. And every single class, every single race has different hairstyles, different faces choices, different skin colors. It's, you know, whatever you like. It's pretty much whatever you want to look like, you can look like nowadays, which is pretty cool. And let's make her have blue hair. And let's do purple eyes. That looks fun. And then you can even pick what kind of chin style you want. I'm going to give her that kind. And then on jewelry, you can pick what kind of jewelry. Actually, this even gives you what kind of ears you can start off with. Let's do the curled ones. Those are kind of cute. What kind of nose? You know, do you want like a droopy nose? Pointy nose? Bulbous? Yeah, I like short noses. Do you want some kind of nose ring? You know, you can do pretty much whatever kind of thing you want. I'm not going to do a nose ring. I don't wear nose rings in real life, so I don't really like them. Again, you don't have to. And then you can kind of pick what color you want your jewelry. I forgot earrings. And you'll notice that these are grayed out. These are grayed out because the type of ears that I have are shorter ears. So if I wanted something more, it would need to change to a bigger ear style. So in this case, I'm going to use just a couple of hoops. So for some reason, oh, because the name is taken. So if you're not sure what name you want, you may or may not notice that your actual arrow button is not highlighted. If it's not highlighted, if you hover over it just like I did, you can actually see what the problem is. In this case, well, my name is taken, so I can't actually play that name. So I'm going to do Goblin Girl. I don't know. Let's do Goblin Gobbly. Sure, Gobbly. I can hit next. Now you can decide where you want to start. So there's two general starting areas for every character, and it's based on your race that you want to play in. The first is what's known as Exile Reach. Exile's Reach is a brand new experience that they've only had since the last expansion pack. It takes you through understanding your class's basic roles and also has a good tutorial. The other area is more story driven that kind of gives you more of an introduction to your character and your class. Your character, I should say. It's really about your character. So this one, for example, will be all about the city that all of the goblins used to live in before they get exiled and have to be forced out. For most new players, I recommend starting in Exile's Reach. It's going to take you through how to play your character, what the game is like, and really how to use some of your first abilities. I strongly recommend that you use Exile's Reach. Once you've played the game a little bit, you can go to the other one. Okay? So when you're done here, click on Finish. And I have too many characters. So I'm going to fix that. And then I'll come back, but you can hit Finish, and it'll kind of give you the introduction. And then in our next video, we'll actually go through the tutorial area and how to play your character, how do you move around, how do you talk to people, you know, what's some of the benefits, what are some of these role-playing things that we've been hearing about, and really get more into the meat of the game itself. With that being said, thank you for watching The Goblin Girl, where we like to get you into gaming. Please like and subscribe for more videos in World of Warcraft and other games where we're going to help you get into gaming. Thank you and have a great day.